The starship Helios Dawn moved through the dark sea of space like a silver arrow. Its engines hummed with steady power, cutting across endless stars and nebulae. Inside the ship, humans and aliens worked together under the flag of the Galactic Union, but not all hearts were united. Many still remembered the war that ended only a few years ago. Trust was weak, and peace felt thin as glass. In the lower decks, far from the command bridge, the engineering section stayed alive with heat and motion. Pipes carried glowing plasma, and machines pulsed with light. The humans worked long hours there. Among them was a quiet engineer named Ryan. He had short dark hair, a lean face, and steady hands. His job was to keep the ship's power grid balanced and the reactors stable. But Ryan had a secret. Hidden behind the metal conduits of the reactor bay was a small black journal. It was old-fashioned, made of paper, not data screens. Ryan wrote in it whenever he found a moment alone. He wrote about the things he could not say aloud, his thoughts about humans, their place in the galaxy, and his dream that one day they would no longer be seen as second-class members of the fleet. He wrote carefully. Using simple ink from a pen he had kept from Earth, the journal held his pride, his anger, and his hope. He called it his heart in words. Most of the alien officers aboard Helios Dawn were Valari, a proud reptilian species with tall frames and bronze scales. Their commander, Zira, was feared and respected by all. Her golden eyes could make even the boldest crew member stand still. She believed in control, order, and perfection. To her, humans were unpredictable and emotional. She tolerated them because the Union demanded it, but in her mind, they were still the weaker race. Ryan knew this, so he kept his journal hidden. He never wanted it to be found, especially not by the commander. That night, after his shift, Ryan stayed late to check the reactor's coolant lines. He wiped his hands on a cloth and sighed as the lights flickered slightly. The ship's systems were old, and many repairs were temporary. He glanced around to make sure no one was near, then reached behind a panel and pulled out the small black book. He sat on a crate near the hum of the engines and began to write. Humans are small, but we rise higher when the world tells us we cannot. The stars do not belong to one race. They belong to all who dare to reach them. Ryan paused. He could almost feel the weight of those words. He smiled faintly, then wrote more. They may see us as fragile, but they do not understand our fire. We survive storms, wars, and silence. One day they will see what we truly are. Before he could finish, the intercom crackled. Engineer Ryan, report 2 quarters, said a mechanical voice. All-night crew shifts are ending. He sighed, placed the journal back behind the conduit, and sealed the panel. Then he walked away, unaware of what was about to happen. The next morning began like any other. Commander Zira entered the engineering deck for her inspection. She was tall, her uniform sharp and spotless, her steps echoing with command. The air grew tense as she moved past each worker, checking the systems and asking sharp questions. Temperature control? She asked. Stable, Commander, replied one human technician. Output levels? Within limits. Then her golden eyes scanned the corner of the room near the power conduits. A faint noise caught her attention. She stepped closer, her sharp claws clicking on the metal floor. What is behind this panel? She asked. Ryan froze at his station. He recognized the spot instantly. It's just a maintenance area, Commander, he said quickly. Zira tilted her head. I see. She pressed a button, and the panel slid open. Inside was the small black journal, resting among dust and cables. Zira reached in and pulled it out. What is this? She asked, turning the book in her hand. Ryan's throat went dry. The room grew silent. Even the hum of machines seemed to fade. It's nothing important, Commander, he said, but his voice shook slightly. Zira opened the book. Her eyes scanned the pages, reading the words written in human ink. Her face showed no expression at first, but the more she read, the more her eyes narrowed. The room was frozen in fear. No one dared to move. Finally, Zira spoke in a low, steady tone. Who wrote this? No one answered. She raised her voice, echoing through the deck. Who wrote this? Ryan could feel his pulse hammering in his chest. The air felt heavy. He wanted to speak, but part of him hesitated. If he confessed, he could be punished for speaking against the fleet's command order. But if he stayed silent, someone else might suffer. Zira looked around, her eyes burning with suspicion. These words speak of rebellion, she said. They question authority. They challenge the order that keeps this fleet alive. Ryan took a deep breath and stepped forward. I wrote it, he said. The room gasped. Zyra turned toward him, holding the book tightly. You admit this? Yes, Commander, Ryan said. Those are my words. She stared at him for a long time, then spoke with cold control. You will come to my quarters at the next cycle. Until then, you are confined to this deck. You will continue your duties under supervision. Yes, Commander, he said quietly. Zira turned and left, the journal still in her hand. The heavy door closed behind her. The crew let out a breath of relief, but the tension stayed. Ryan sat down, his heart heavy. His secret was gone. Inside her quarters, Zira placed the journal on her desk. She stared at it for a long moment before opening it again. She read the words slowly. They call us small. They say we are weak. But they forget how hard it is to rise when the world pushes you down. She frowned. To her, such words were strange. The Valari way was strength through discipline, not emotion. Yet something in these words stirred her curiosity. She read further. We fight not because we want war, but because peace without respect is a cage. One day even they will understand that we seek not power, but equality. Ace. Zyra's eyes softened slightly. She closed the book and sat back in silence. In her memory, she saw the faces of human soldiers during the war, those who fought even when outnumbered, those who refused to surrender. She remembered one battle in which humans held the line long after logic said they should have fallen. At the time, she thought it was madness. Now, reading Ryan's words, she began to wonder if it was something else, something she had never learned to understand. The door alarm beeped. Commander Zyra, said her aide through the intercom. Do you wish to continue your inspection on Deck 10? She paused before answering. No, she said. Not today. She turned off the intercom and looked at the book again. For the first time, the strict commander of the Valari fleet felt uncertain about the truths she had always believed. Back on Deck 9, Ryan continued his work. Some of the human crew whispered encouragement to him, while others warned him to stay silent. The alien crew avoided eye contact. At lunch, Ryan sat alone near the viewport. The stars stretched endlessly outside. He thought of home of the blue sky he hadn't seen in years, of the wind that smelled like salt and rain. He missed it deeply. But more than that, he wanted humanity to be seen as more than just a supporting race in the fleet. He looked up when a fellow engineer, a short woman named Mira, sat beside him. You are brave, she said quietly. No one else would have admitted it. Ryan gave a tired smile. Maybe it was foolish. Maybe, Mira said. But sometimes foolishness is the start of courage. Her words made him feel a bit lighter in the command quarters. Zyra spent the evening reading more of the journal. Each page showed a human mind that believed in something greater than fear. She read about humanity's past, the wars they fought to protect freedom, the struggles to survive harsh worlds. The courage to reach the stars even when other species laughed at them. At one line, she stopped. We do not want to rule. We only want to stand beside others as equals. She closed the book again, this time slowly. She realized she had never truly spoken to a human beyond giving orders. Perhaps she thought she had never truly understood them at all. The next day, Zyra called a private meeting with her second officer. This human, she said. Tapping the book, he writes with defiance but also with truth. I want him questioned, but not punished. I will speak with him myself. The officer looked surprised but nodded. As you command, Captain. When the door closed, Zyra looked out the viewport. Stars drifted past like tiny fires. She held the book close to her chest and whispered softly, What drives them to such spirit? She had no answer yet. But deep inside her, something had begun to change. That night, Ryan lay awake in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. He wondered what would happen tomorrow when he faced Zyra again. Fear mixed with curiosity in his heart. Would she punish him? Would she destroy the journal? Or would she try to understand? He did not know. But one thing was certain. His words were no longer his secret. They were now in the hands of someone who might decide the fate of every human aboard the Helios Dawn. And somewhere above, in her silent chamber, Commander Zyra held the same book close. Trying to understand the mind of the human who had dared to write what others only thought. The morning began with a strange tension that spread through the Helios Dawn like a slow current. Every human engineer on Deck 9 worked quietly, afraid to draw attention. They knew what was coming. Commander Zyra had summoned Ryan to her private chamber. No one knew what she planned to do. Ryan had not slept much. The thought of facing the alien commander filled him with unease. He knew she was strict and proud. The Valari were known for their discipline and harsh sense of order. He feared that his words might be seen as rebellion, even if he meant them as hope. When the signal light flashed on his console, he knew the moment had arrived. Engineer Ryan. "Report to Commander Zyra's quarters immediately," said the ship's intercom. The room fell silent. Every pair of eyes turned toward him. Mira gave him a short nod of support. Ryan stood up, straightened his uniform, and took a steady breath. "I will be back," he said quietly. No one answered. They all knew that once someone entered the commander's chamber under such circumstances, there was no guarantee they would return the same. The command section of the ship was silent, except for the hum of machinery. The corridors were lined with silver walls and blue lights that reflected off polished metal. When Ryan reached the door marked Commander Zyra, he paused. His heart was beating faster than the steady rhythm of the ship's engine. He pressed the door chime. The door slid open with a hiss. Zyra stood near her desk, the journal resting on it. Her golden eyes turned toward him as he entered. "Close the door," she said. He obeyed. The sound of the door locking behind him echoed in the quiet room. "Sit," she ordered, pointing toward a chair across from her. Ryan sat down carefully. He tried to keep his posture calm, but his hands were tense. Zyra picked up the small black book and looked at it for a long moment before speaking. "You wrote this," she said. "Yes," Commander Ryan replied. "Why?" she asked. Her tone was not angry, only curious and controlled. Ryan took a breath. "Because I needed to. Because I wanted to say what I feel. It is not meant to harm anyone. It is only truth." Zyra's eyes narrowed. "Truth can be dangerous," she said. "Your words question the command structure of the fleet. They speak of freedom, pride, and equality. Such words create unrest among soldiers." "I did not mean to cause unrest," Ryan said. "But I cannot pretend that everything is equal when it is not. Humans work hard here. We repair, build, and risk our lives every day. Yet, we are still treated as lesser. We want respect, not control." Zyra watched him closely. His voice was steady, and his eyes held no fear. She had expected denial or apology, but what she saw instead was honesty. "Do you think your words can change anything?" she asked. "I do not know," Ryan said. "But silence changes nothing. Sometimes one voice is enough to start understanding." The commander walked slowly toward the window of her chamber. The stars outside moved in long streams of light. She clasped her hands behind her back and spoke softly. "When I first read your journal, I felt anger. Your words challenged the system I have served all my life. I believed that obedience and order were the only things that kept chaos away. But your words were different. They were not filled with hate. They were filled with belief." Ryan looked up. "Then you understand what I meant." Zyra turned her head slightly. "Understanding and agreeing are not the same. But I want to understand more. You speak of human courage. You speak of something you call spirit. What is it?" Ryan thought for a moment before answering. "It is what keeps us moving when there is no hope. It is what makes us stand up after falling. It is not about strength or rank. It is about the will to continue when logic says it is over." Zira looked thoughtful. You believe humans are special because of this spirit? I believe every race has something special, Ryan said. The Valari have discipline. The humans have spirit. Together, we can be stronger. But if one side believes it is above the other, then we will never truly stand as one. Zira was silent for a while. The hum of the ship filled the room. She finally sat down across from him. You were bold to speak this way, she said. Many commanders would have sent you to confinement already. Ryan met her gaze. Then I am lucky to speak to you instead. For a moment, the corner of her mouth twitched, almost like the shadow of a smile. But she quickly returned to her usual calm expression. She opened the journal again and turned to a page she had marked. You wrote this line, she said. They may see us as fragile, but they do not understand our fire. Tell me what you meant. Ryan leaned forward. I meant that humans may look weaker than other races. We are not as strong as the Valari or as fast as the Traykar. But we endure. We build from nothing. Even when we lose everything, we start again. That is our fire. Zira studied him carefully. You believe endurance is strength, yes, Ryan said. Because when everything else fails, endurance keeps us alive. Zira closed the book again. Your words remind me of something I once saw during the war. A group of human soldiers held a position for 3 days without food or rest. When we reached them, we expected to find them dead. But they were still standing, ready to fight again. At that time, I could not understand why. Now I think I begin to see. Ryan nodded slowly. That is what I mean by spirit, Commander. It is not in the body. It is in the heart. For a moment, both sat in silence. The air between them was no longer filled with fear, but with quiet respect. After a while, Zira spoke again. I will not punish you, Ryan, but you must understand that your words have power. If others read them without guidance, they may misunderstand your intent. Some may see it as rebellion. I understand, Ryan said. I never wanted to cause division. I only wanted to remind us all that respect must come from both sides. Zira nodded slowly. Very well. You will continue your duties as before. But this book will stay with me for now. I will read it carefully. When I am done, I will decide what to do with it. Ryan felt relief wash through him. Thank you, Commander. You may go, she said. But remember, I will speak with you again soon. He stood up and gave a respectful nod before leaving the room. The door closed behind him with a quiet hiss. After Ryan left, Zira sat alone, holding the book in her hands. She opened it once more and read the last written page. Respect is not given by fear. It is earned through understanding. One day, even those who command will see that true strength comes not from control, but from unity. The words echoed in her mind. She looked out the window again. The stars stretched endlessly before her, cold and bright. For the first time in many years, she felt uncertain about the path she had chosen as a commander. Ryan returned to the lower decks. The moment he stepped into the engineering bay, the other humans looked at him with curiosity and relief. Myra hurried over to him. What happened? She asked in a whisper. She talked to me, Ryan said quietly. No punishment. She just wanted to understand. Mira looked surprised. Commander Zira wanted to understand. Ryan smiled faintly. I did not expect it either. Sat at his station again, feeling a strange calm settle inside him. He knew the situation was not over. Zira still had the journal, and the future was uncertain. But something had changed between them. That night, while most of the crew slept, Zira walked the silent corridors of the ship. Her mind was filled with Ryan's words. She stopped near a viewport, watching a distant nebula glowing in soft blue light. Her aide, Officer Laren, approached her. Commander, is everything all right? Zira turned toward him. Yes, I am only thinking... He looked curious. About the human? She did not answer immediately. Then she said humans are strange. They fight even when there is no chance to win. They hope even when there is no reason to. I always thought it was weakness. Now I am not sure. Laren tilted his head. Do you trust him? Zira looked back at the stars. Not yet. but I am beginning to respect him. Laren gave a small nod and left. Zira remained by the window for a long time. The next morning, a new message arrived from the fleet command. The Helios Dawn was being sent to patrol near the frontier zone, close to pirate territory. It was a dangerous assignment. Zira read the orders carefully, then called her senior officers to the bridge. "Prepare the ship," she said. "We depart in 6 hours." Her voice was steady, but in her mind she thought of Ryan. She wondered how he would react when danger arrived. Would his courage match his words? Would his spirit shine when tested? Later that day, Zira entered the engineering deck again. This time, the crew stood straighter than usual. She moved with calm authority and stopped in front of Ryan. "Engineer," she said. "Commander," Ryan replied. "We are heading to the frontier. The area is unstable. I expect all systems to be ready." "They will be." "Commander," Ryan said. She looked at him for a moment, then added, "I will speak with you again after the mission."
"Yes."
"Commander?" She turned and walked away, her expression unreadable. But as she left, Ryan thought he saw something different in her eyes. Not coldness, but curiosity. That night, Zira opened the journal once more before resting. She read one line again and again. "When fear meets hope, courage is born." She closed the book and placed it beside her. The hum of the ship filled the quiet room. She whispered softly to herself, "We will see, human. We will see how true your words are." Outside, the Helios Dawn drifted toward the frontier, where new challenges waited. Both the human engineer and the alien commander felt that something greater was beginning. He had changed neither could yet name. The Helios Dawn moved through the frontier zone, where the edge of the galaxy turned wild and uncharted. Stars burned bright against a dark sky filled with drifting dust and glowing clouds. It was a dangerous region, filled with pirates, raiders, and forgotten colonies that had lost contact with the Union. Every officer on board knew that one wrong move could mean disaster. Commander Zira stood on the bridge, watching the stars with calm focus. Her scales reflected the blue light of the screens around her. Her mind was steady, but deep inside, a quiet thought stayed alive. It was the memory of Ryan's words. They echoed like a whisper she could not silence. Her second officer, Laren, approached. "Commander, all systems are ready. The patrol route has been set." Zira nodded. "Good, keep the crew alert." "I do not want surprises." "Yes, Commander," Laren said, and returned to his station. As the ship glided forward, Zira opened a side channel to the engineering deck. "Engineer Ryan, report." Ryan's voice came through, calm and clear. "All systems stable, Commander. Reactor output at 96%. Shields are at full capacity." "Good," she said. "You may come to my chamber when your shift ends. I have questions for you." There was a brief pause, then Ryan replied, "Understood, Commander." Hours later, Ryan stood outside her chamber again. The door opened with a soft hiss, and he stepped inside. Zira was waiting by her desk, the black journal placed in front of her, as always. Her expression was unreadable. "Sit," she said. Ryan obeyed. "I have read more of your writings," Zira said. "You speak often of freedom, of choice, of human strength. You also speak of unity between races. These are fine ideas, but they are not always possible. Do you believe your words can truly exist in reality?" Ryan met her eyes. "Yes, Commander. I believe they can." Zira leaned forward. "Then tell me how. Tell me how freedom does not lead to chaos. Tell me how equality does not weaken command." Ryan thought for a moment. "Because true freedom is not the absence of order. It is the presence of respect. When people respect each other, they follow orders because they trust, not because they fear. That is how unity is built." Zira tilted her head slightly. "You speak as if trust is easy. In war, I have seen trust break faster than metal under heat. Fear keeps order. It ensures survival." Ryan nodded slowly. "Fear can control people. Yes, but it cannot inspire them. It cannot make them give everything they have when the moment truly demands it. Only trust can do that. Zyra walked to the large viewport and looked out at the stars. You speak like a leader, Ryan. Yet you are only an engineer. Ryan smiled faintly. Leaders are not born from rank, Commander. They are born from belief. Zyra turned to him again. Belief can also lead to destruction. Many wars began because someone believed too strongly in their cause. That is true, Ryan said. But belief guided by compassion is different. It builds, not destroys. Ace. Zyra studied him for a long moment. Your species is strange. You use emotion as if it were a weapon. Ryan answered softly. It is not a weapon, Commander. It is what keeps us human. Zyra sat down across from him and opened the journal once more. You wrote this line, she said. We are not the strongest or the fastest, but we are the ones who refuse to give up. You truly believe this? Ryan nodded. Yes. It is what makes us who we are. The universe can take everything from us, but as long as we keep moving forward, we never lose. Zyra looked down at the page, reading the words again. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she asked, Do you think the Valari lacked this quality? Ryan hesitated. I think the Valari have strength of a different kind. You have order and discipline. You fight with logic and control. Humans fight with heart and instinct. If those two strengths were joined, we could achieve something far greater. Zyra's golden eyes softened slightly. You speak of unity again. Yes, Ryan said. Because without it, we will only repeat the same mistakes of the past. A small alert sounded through the ship. Zyra tapped her communicator. Report, Loren's voice came through. Commander, we have detected a signal ahead. Unknown origin. It could be distress or a trap. Set a course to investigate, Zyra said. Then she looked at Ryan. You may remain here. I want to hear what you think as this unfolds. Ryan nodded, surprised that she allowed him to stay. Moments later, the Helios Dawn reached the signal source. On the main screen, a broken ship appeared, its hull scorched, drifting near an asteroid field. No life signs were detected, but weak power still ran through its systems. Send a probe, Zyra ordered. The probe flew out and scanned the wreck. The readings came back unstable. There were traces of energy weapons, signs of a recent battle. Laren's voice echoed through the comms. Commander, it looks like the ship was attacked by raiders. Zyra frowned. Any survivors? None detected, Commander. Zyra turned to Ryan. You worked on human ships before joining this fleet? What do you see? Ryan studied the data on the screen. The damage patterns suggest more than a raid. The main reactor was not destroyed. It was taken. Someone stole it. This was not just an attack. It was a theft. Zyra nodded slowly. You have sharp eyes. You are correct. That means the raiders are still close. The crew went on high alert. Zyra issued orders with calm precision, her voice steady. Shields 2 full. Prepare for contact. Ryan stood beside her, watching the sensors. His mind raced, calculating possible enemy positions. He noticed a faint energy trail near the asteroids. There, he said, pointing. A small power signature. They are hiding behind the rocks. Zyra looked at the readings. Confirmed. You have good instincts. The ship turned toward the asteroids. Moments later, several small vessels appeared on the sensors, their weapons charging. They are pirates, Laren said. For ships, approaching fast, Zyra's expression hardened. All stations prepare for battle. The Helios Dawn shook as the first blasts hit the shields. Blue sparks ran along the outer hull. The crew moved quickly, following orders. Ryan returned to the engineering station, his hands flying over the controls. He rerouted power to strengthen the forward shields. Commander, said over the comms, I can give the front shields more strength, but it will reduce power to the engines. Do it, Zyra said. We need to hold position. The battle continued. Energy beams cut through space, lighting the darkness with flashes of blue and red. The ship's guns fired back, hitting one of the pirate vessels. It exploded in a burst of light, but the other 3 closed in fast. Ryan noticed a warning on his screen. Commander, the reactor coolant line is overheating. We cannot hold this power level for long. Stabilize it, she ordered. I am trying, but it needs a manual override. I will go to the lower chamber, Ryan said. Negative, Zyra replied. It is too dangerous. With respect, Commander, if I do not go, the reactor could fail. If that happens, we lose the ship. Zyra hesitated for only a moment. Very well. Take someone with you. I will go alone, Ryan said, and ran toward the exit. The lower reactor chamber was hot and filled with the hum of energy. Steam rose from the vents, and red lights flashed across the walls. Ryan climbed down the ladder and reached the control panel. The coolant valve was stuck. He pulled a wrench from the wall and tried to turn it, but it did not move. The ship shook again as another blast hit. Sparks rained from above. Ryan gritted his teeth and used all his strength. The valve turned slowly, releasing the pressure. The temperature readings began to fall. He sighed with relief and contacted the bridge. Reactor stable, Commander. Coolant flow restored. Well done, Zyra said. Return to your station. As Ryan climbed back up, he thought about her voice. It was still firm, but something in her tone had changed. It carried a hint of respect. The battle continued for another 10 minutes. Under Zyra's command, the Helios Dawn destroyed 2 more pirate ships. The last one tried to escape, but Zyra ordered pursuit. The ship's main cannon fired, and the enemy vessel exploded into fragments. Enemy neutralized, Laren reported. Zyra gave a short nod. Damage report. Minor hull breaches on Deck 11. No casualties. Zyra looked calm, but her heart was still beating fast. She turned to the communications screen. Engineering report. Ryan appeared on the display. Systems are stable, Commander. Reactor at full function. Excellent, Zyra said. You handled yourself well. Thank you, Commander, he replied. Later, when the ship returned to normal speed, Zyra called Ryan to her chamber again. When he arrived, she stood at the window, looking at the glowing remains of the destroyed pirate ships. You performed beyond your duty today, she said. You saved the ship, Ryan nodded. Everyone did their part. Zyra turned toward him. No, you acted when others would have waited for orders. That is what your words spoke of in your journal. Action through belief. Ryan smiled faintly. I only did what was needed. She placed a hand on the book. Now I see your words more clearly. Humans are driven by something different. I used to think it was recklessness. Now I think it is courage. Ryan looked at her with quiet respect. Courage is not the absence of fear, Commander. It is doing what is right, even when fear is there. Zyra nodded slowly. Perhaps there is much my people can learn from yours. For a while neither spoke. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship. Then Zyra said, Your journal is not just yours anymore, Ryan. It belongs to something larger. I will read it to the senior officers tomorrow. They must understand what I have begun to see. Ryan was surprised. You would do that? The Helios Dawn moved deeper into the frontier zone. The stars here were fewer, and darkness stretched like a blanket over the vast emptiness of space. Sensor readings flashed intermittently, showing clusters of asteroids and drifting debris. Every officer on the bridge was alert. Commander Zyra stood at the center, her golden eyes scanning every reading. Her claws tapped lightly against the console. She knew that the frontier was unpredictable. Raiders, rogue ships, and remnants of ancient war machines could appear at any moment. Engineering. Confirm shield output, she ordered. Ryan's voice came through clearly. Shields at full capacity, Commander. Reactor output stable. Very well. Maintain vigilance, she said, as the ship navigated an asteroid cluster. A warning signal flashed red on the main screen. Commander Laren said, multiple contacts detected. Fast-moving ships approaching from all sides. Zyra's lips pressed into a thin line. Battle stations. All crew prepare for engagement. The bridge came alive with activity. Humans and Valari worked together seamlessly. The alarms blared, echoing through the corridors. The Helios Dawn shuddered as the first enemy blasts hit the outer shields. Sparks flew across the displays, and the hum of energy filled the room. Ryan's hands moved quickly over his console. rerouting power. Forward shields at 70%. We can hold them for a short time. Do it, Zira commanded. We cannot allow the fleet to be ambushed here. The enemy ships were raiders, agile and deadly. They darted in and out of asteroid shadows, firing energy bolts that cut through space. Target the lead ship, Zira ordered. Fire concentrated beams on its reactor. The Helios Dawn's cannons fired in a powerful, synchronized volley. The lead raider erupted in a burst of red fire. The remaining ships hesitated for a moment but quickly regrouped, preparing for another attack. Ryan noticed a critical warning on the reactor panel. Commander, the main coolant system is overloading. If we do not reduce power, the reactor could fail. Zira did not hesitate. Divert all auxiliary power to the reactor. Sacrifice non-essential systems. The ship groaned as energy shifted. Lights flickered, and the vibration shook the bridge. Ryan worked rapidly, monitoring temperature and pressure. In the chaos of battle, smaller raider managed to sneak behind the ship. Its weapons targeted the aft engines, threatening to immobilize the Helios Dawn. Engineer Ryan. Zira shouted, "Can the aft shields hold it?" "I will try, Commander, but the main reactor is at its limit," Ryan replied. Zira considered the situation for a moment. "Do not hesitate. Take action." Ryan nodded, sprinting toward the secondary control station. He worked quickly to reroute power, sacrificing lighting and life support systems in certain sections to reinforce the shields. Steam hissed from vent valves and sparks shot across the floor. But he continued his work. On the bridge, Zira coordinated the fleet's response. All weapon stations, focus on the raiders near the asteroids. Keep them away from the ship. The humans and Valari worked in harmony, their movements precise. Every command was followed, every action calculated. The Helios Dawn's cannons fired repeatedly, striking enemy ships and forcing them back into the shadows. Despite the chaos, Zira could not take her eyes off Ryan's work. Even under immense pressure, he remained calm and focused. He moved with determination. Understanding the ship's systems better than anyone else on board, one of the raiders fired a concentrated energy beam toward the reactor chamber. The blast struck the outer shield, sending a ripple of energy through the hull. Ryan felt the vibration in his bones, but continued his work. Reactor coolant pressure dropping. He yelled over the cooms. Zira's golden eyes narrowed. "Manual override. You must stabilize it now." Ryan grabbed the emergency wrench and ran toward the reactor core. Heat radiated from the walls, and the metal floor burned beneath his boots. He reached the panel and began turning the valves by hand. Sparks flew, and the air filled with the hiss of steam. With every ounce of strength, he managed to stabilize the coolant flow. The warning lights slowly dimmed. The reactor's temperature dropped to safe levels. "Reactor stable," he said, panting. "Shields are back to full." Zira allowed herself a brief nod. "Well done, Ryan. You saved the ship." The battle continued for another tense hour. The raiders attempted repeated attacks, but the Helios Dawn's crew, under Zira's command, repelled each one. The humans' courage and the Velari's precision worked together to create an unbreakable defense. During a brief pause in the fighting, Zira called Ryan to the bridge. He arrived, sweat dripping from his brow, but his eyes were steady. "You acted with remarkable bravery," Zira said. "Many would have frozen or followed protocol. You improvised when it was needed. That is why we survived." Ryan shook his head. "I did what anyone would have done, Commander. I only did not have the choice to hesitate."
Has Zira considered this?
"No, you went beyond duty. That is what your journal spoke of. Action through courage." As the last of the raiders fled into the darkness of the asteroid field, the Helios Dawn began repairs. Hull breaches were sealed, minor fires extinguished, and damaged systems restored. The crew worked tirelessly, both human and Valari, side by side, in the quiet after the storm. Zira summoned Ryan once more to her private chamber. She stood by the window, the black journal resting on the desk. "You proved your words," she said. "You showed that human spirit is not just talk. It is action. You risked your life to save the ship and crew." Ryan looked at her respectfully. I did what needed to be done, Commander. I only hope I was able to protect everyone. You did more than protect, Zyra said. You inspired. You showed that courage is more than strength or weaponry. It is in the willingness to act when fear is present. Ryan felt a warmth he had never experienced before. Respect from Commander Zyra was not given lightly. He realized that the words he had written in secret, the thoughts he had kept hidden in his journal, had begun to change her view of humanity. Zyra walked slowly around the room, her golden eyes studying him. I must confess, she said, I underestimated your species. I believed humans were fragile, easily broken by fear and danger. Today, I have seen that is not true. You possess a spirit that cannot be measured by strength alone. Ryan's chest swelled with pride. Thank you, Commander. That is what I hoped others would see one day. She picked up the journal and opened it. Your words have meaning now beyond these pages. I will share them with the senior officers. They must understand that human courage is not a weakness. It is a gift, Ryan nodded slowly. If it helps them see humanity differently, then I am glad. The remainder of the evening was quiet. Crew members repaired minor damages, and the ship regained its calm rhythm. Ryan returned to his station, but his mind lingered on Zyra's words. She had acknowledged human spirit in a way no other Valari officer had. He felt a quiet hope for the future of their alliance. Meanwhile, Zyra stood in her quarters, reading the journal again. The line that stayed in her mind was simple, yet powerful. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite fear. She repeated the words softly to herself. For the first time, she considered the idea that humans were not only capable of survival, but capable of leadership, bravery, and unity. The frontier was dangerous, but she realized that with humans like Ryan, the Helios Dawn could face any threat. The next morning, Zyra called a meeting of the senior officers. She held the journal in her hand as she addressed them. This book, she said, was written by a human named Ryan. His words describe courage, unity, and determination. I have seen these qualities in action. I ask all of you to read it and understand what I have learned. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is strong, and we must value it as an equal part of this fleet. The officers looked surprised. Some whispered to one another. For centuries, humans had been considered minor members of the fleet. To hear the commander speak in this way was unprecedented. Ryan stood quietly at the back. He could hardly believe what was happening. His private thoughts were now recognized as a lesson for the entire command structure. As the council meeting concluded, Zyra approached him. Your courage has changed my view of your species, she said. Do not forget, Ryan, that words inspire, but actions prove them. Ryan bowed slightly. I will remember, Commander, and I will continue to act as best I can. Zyra handed the journal back to him. Keep it safe. It is now both a record and a symbol. Remember, your words and deeds together have power. Ryan took the book carefully, feeling the weight of responsibility and pride. He understood that this was only the beginning. Outside, the frontier stretched endlessly. Pirates, dangers, and unknown challenges awaited. But within the walls of the Helios Dawn, new understanding had been forged, a bond of respect between a human and an alien commander, a bond that could change the course of the fleet. The Helios Dawn glided through the frontier with cautious precision. Its engines hummed steadily, and the stars stretched endlessly across the dark void. For the crew, the days after the pirate battle were filled with repairs, recalibration, and careful navigation. For Commander Zyra, they were also filled with reflection. She had spent countless hours reading Ryan's journal. Every page, every line, had shown her something she had not understood before: the strength of human spirit, the courage born not from fear, but from hope. She realized that humans were not merely surviving in the galaxy, they were shaping it. Quietly, persistently, and with resolve. Ryan worked diligently in the engineering deck, but he felt a new energy in the ship. There was an unspoken shift in the way the Valari officers regarded the humans. They no longer simply tolerated them. They watched with curiosity, respect, and even admiration. One morning, Zyra called Ryan to the bridge. His heart thumped as he approached, but he also felt a growing confidence. The commander's summons no longer felt like a warning. It felt like an acknowledgement. Engineer Ryan Zira began, her golden eyes fixed on him. Your words and actions have changed more than one mind on this ship. The Fleet Command has accepted your journal for review. They want to understand how humans can contribute not only as workers or soldiers, but as partners. You will be present at the review session. Ryan's eyes widened. I am honored, Commander. I will do my best. Zira inclined her head. Your best will be enough. And remember, it is not only words that matter, it is action that proves them. He nodded, feeling the weight and pride of the responsibility. Later that day, Ryan stood in a large conference hall aboard the ship. Senior officers of both human and Valari origin filled the room. The walls reflected the blue and silver lights of the Helios dawn, giving the chamber an almost ethereal glow. Commander Zira held the journal, standing before the council. This book, she said, her voice calm and commanding, was written by a human engineer named Ryan. It contains his thoughts on courage, unity, and the strength of the human spirit. I have witnessed the truth of his words firsthand. I ask all of you to read them and reflect. She opened the journal and began reading passages aloud. We do not seek to control, but to stand beside others as equals. Fear can control people, but it cannot inspire them. Only trust can do that. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear. The council listened in silence. Many had never considered humans in this light. For centuries, humans were seen as weak, emotional, and unreliable. But Zira's words, combined with her testimony of Ryan's actions during the frontier battle, shifted the perception. Ryan stood quietly, humbled. His journal, once hidden in private, was now a symbol of hope for all humans in the fleet. After the reading, an elder Valari officer spoke. Commander Zira, your assessment is surprising. I had not considered that humans could act with such resolve under pressure, yet your experience confirms it. This changes how we must view them in command and battle. Another officer, a human captain, nodded. We have long known courage in our crews, but this recognition at the highest level will strengthen unity. Humans will no longer be underestimated. Zira closed the journal and handed it to Ryan. Your words are no longer just yours. They belong to the fleet. They will guide us moving forward. Ryan felt a mixture of pride and humility. He realized that a simple act of writing had transformed into something far greater, a bridge of understanding between races. Days passed, and the Helios dawn continued its patrols. The crew worked in closer harmony than ever before. The humans moved with confidence, the Valari with renewed respect. Missions that once felt routine now carried a sense of purpose. Ryan continued his duties, but he also took time to mentor younger crew members. He taught them how to act under pressure, how to think calmly, and how courage could change outcomes even when resources were scarce. Many of the younger Valari officers watched him closely, learning something new about human determination. One quiet night, Ryan found himself alone in the observation deck. Stars stretched in all directions, some distant, some near enough to see shifting colors. Zira entered quietly, standing beside him. You write about courage, she said softly. I watched you today as you guided your team through a difficult technical repair. Once again, your words proved true, and smiled faintly. Commander, it is only because I trust my team. We succeed together. Zira nodded slowly. Trust. That is something I have learned from you. The Valari believe in discipline and control. Humans. You teach us something different. That belief in one another, in action guided by heart, can be stronger than fear. Ryan looked at her. And you showed me that understanding another species is also about action, not just words. You gave me a chance to prove my thoughts, not punish them. Zira allowed a small smile. Perhaps we are both learning. For a long time, they stood in silence, watching the distant stars. In that quiet moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. Humans and Valari could fight together, survive together, and grow together. It was not just strategy or protocol, it was something deeper. The next mission tested their alliance further. A stranded civilian ship sent a distress signal. It had been attacked by a pirate fleet and was drifting toward a dangerous asteroid field. The Helios Dawn responded immediately. Zira commanded the ship with precision, coordinating humans and Valari alike. Ryan worked in engineering to ensure the reactors maintained maximum efficiency. The ship moved through the field carefully, avoiding collisions and blasting obstacles when necessary. When they reached the civilian vessel, they found it partially damaged, its crew frightened and weak. Zira led the rescue operation. But it was Ryan who risked his life by venturing into a damaged section of the ship to manually restore power. His courage under pressure saved the civilians and ensured that the ship could be towed safely back to the fleet. After the mission, Zira commended him openly. "You have shown that courage is not only a personal trait, but a guiding force. Humans can inspire others by action, and that inspiration spreads." Ryan nodded, but he knew the credit belonged to the crew. They had all worked together. Yet he felt the satisfaction of knowing that his courage, combined with his words, had led to a real change. The days turned into weeks. The fleet continued its patrols, facing challenges and minor skirmishes. Each time, humans and Valari fought together, not merely as soldiers and engineers, but as equals who trusted one another. Ryan's journal became a blueprint of sorts, not only for courage but for understanding. Commander Zira often read passages aloud to crews before dangerous missions. Lines like, "Respect is earned through understanding, not given by fear. Unity is strength, and it begins with seeing the value in others." These words began to reshape the fleet's culture. Humans were no longer seen as the weaker species. Their actions and beliefs were recognized, valued, and even celebrated. One evening, after a long day of repairs and navigation, Ryan and Zira stood together on the observation deck once again. "The frontier is safer because we learned to trust each other," Ryan said quietly. Zira nodded. "Yes, your words and actions have done more than I expected. They have changed perceptions, inspired courage, and united people who once doubted each other." Ryan looked at her with respect. "Commander, it is the opportunity you gave me that allowed it. Without your choice to understand rather than punish, none of this could have happened." Zira allowed herself a rare moment of softness. "Perhaps. Understanding is the first step, and courage follows when we act upon it." They stood in silence, gazing at the stars. A new era had begun not just for the Helios Dawn, but for the fleet as a whole. Humans and Valari could now see each other not as masters or subordinates, but as partners. In the weeks that followed, Ryan's journal was circulated among fleet officers. Its words inspired training, missions, and daily life. Humans gained confidence. Valari gained respect for their courage. The unity of the fleet grew stronger. Ryan continued his work in engineering, but he also became a quiet leader among the humans. He encouraged others to act with bravery, speak with honesty, and trust in their own abilities. Commander Zira continued to guide the ship with her sharp mind, but her understanding of humanity had deepened. Together, they became symbols of what could be achieved when different species worked not just alongside each other, but with understanding, respect, and courage. One night, as the Helios Dawn cruised past a bright nebula, Ryan looked at the stars and thought of home. He thought of Earth, of humans struggling to survive in a galaxy that often underestimated them. Yet here, among aliens and allies, he realized that humanity had proven its value not through domination, but through spirit, action, and courage. Beside him, Zira watched the same stars. She knew that the future of the fleet would be different because of one human who dared to write the truth, and because of an alien commander who dared to listen. For the first time in centuries, humans and Valari could truly walk side by side in the galaxy, not as ruler and subject, but as equals united by courage, respect, and the hope of all that lay ahead. The stars stretched endlessly before them, filled with unknown challenges. But the Helios Dawn moved forward with confidence, carrying not just a ship and crew, but the promise of a better future for all races in the fleet.